Hey guys, welcome back to Salem, Cellar. So as movie lovers, when we hear the word remake, we cringe, right? We're like, just leave it alone, leave my favorite film alone. Just don't touch it. But it made me really sit and think about remakes that I love. Some of them I love maybe even a little bit more than the original. So I created a list of my favorite remakes, horror and sci-fi, and I am going to be listing them for you, and we're going to be discussing these movies. The list was kind of long, so I'm going to be breaking it down in a couple of different videos. So today we're going to be discussing 5 of them. Make sure you hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll be right back. All right, so the first on my list is House of Wax. Now, the original was released 1953. It's starring Carolyn Jones. She was Morticia from the original Addams Family show. Charles Bronson, Vincent Price. I love Vincent Price. Now, this film is great. It's a classic. It's obviously one of my favorites. I love anything Vincent Price. And I definitely appreciate this film because this film, it actually made it, like, Vincent Price was like kind of like a secondary actor, and it completely changed his career. He became more like the mad scientist, like the fiendish, like kind of character that we love so much. So this film did that for his career, and of course you got to appreciate that because he's just, he's the king. He's great. And with a cast like that, how can you not love that film? The remake was released May 6, 2005. It's starring Jared Padalecki, which is Sam Winchester from Supernatural. Love my Supernatural. Chad Michael Murray. Paris Hilton is in this film. Alicia Cuthbert, who's actually also in 24, which I love 24. Now, I actually saw this film before I saw the first one, and I saw it in the theater. And I remember the first time seeing it, I was like, this is not like anything I've ever seen before, right? Because I haven't seen the original at the time, right? So it was so much fun from start to finish. They build up the characters, so you're getting to know the different types of people and the relationship they have together. There's Alicia Cuthbert and Chad Michael Murray. They're brother and sister. I'm pretty sure they're twins. You can tell, Chad Michael Murray, he's gotten into a lot of trouble, and Alicia's the good twin. And they're going on a road trip now. I'm pretty sure they're going to like some type of sporting event, and they have car trouble. And yeah, it just shit hits the fan from there. They go to this, they kind of split up. They go to this abandoned town, and there's nothing. There's a bunch of wax figures everywhere. They run into this man, and it just goes downhill from there. They find out that these 2 brothers that I'm pretty sure are twins as well have just been kind of I guess you could say kidnapping people and turning them into wax figures. And you actually see them in this movie turn people into wax figures. That to me is it's just amazing. It's amazing to watch, the people getting waxed. So I'm a big fan of Jared Padalecki. I'm a big fan of Supernatural, of course, as I say all the time. So it was painful to watch his scene as he's getting waxed, and he's getting the hot wax poured on his skin. You see him later on, spoiler alert, you see him later on getting his skin peels off, and it's pretty horrifying to watch, but amazing at the same time. It is so realistic. It's just so much fun. Just the idea of this whole town, and it's filled with people that were turned into wax figures. You go to the wax museums, you see it, but imagine they were actually real people under there. It's pretty intense to think about it. Now, one of the brothers, the bad brothers, the twins, his name is Vincent. And they named him Vincent after Vincent Price, kind of just showing some respect to the original film, which, you definitely can appreciate. Now, this film is one of 4 films, remake horror films, that were released in 2005. A big year for remakes. Amityville Horror, The Fog, and Chaos were all released the same year. I actually really enjoyed the Fog remake. I like the original better, but I did enjoy The Fog. Also, I thought it was weird, I guess the time, 2005, Paris Hilton was pretty big back then, right? So they casted her first, and they casted everybody else around her role. which I thought was pretty interesting. It kind of makes you think differently about this movie. You know, like I don't dislike Paris Hilton, but I'm not like a big Paris Hilton fan. And it's just weird to think, like, with all these amazing characters, these amazing stars, I should say, not characters, stars in this film, that she would be the main person, the main, like, actor that they would cast, and then they would pick everybody else up around it. You know, like, I'm thinking about 2005, these actors were pretty big back then. One Tree Hill was going on. Sam, I'm pretty sure he was in Gilmore Girls. Alicia Cuthbert was in 24. I'm pretty sure, trying to think of like the timeline in the year. I think it was at the same time. So they were all pretty big actors. So to just pick her first and then have everybody like cast it around her, like, you know, like kind of like she's the queen was, you know, a little funny. And they do kind of make fun of this film, or, you know, this movie, and the fact that Jared Padalecki and Paris Hilton were together in this movie on Supernatural. There's like an episode, and I think she's supposed to be like a god who can shapeshift, and they kind of like, you know, make fun of this film, which I thought was pretty cute. So I do love the original. I love the original so much, but I don't want to say I like this one better. I want to say, like, we could put it even, you know, like, I think it's just as good as the original. Like, maybe I'm going to get hate from it, but I really like this film. You know, of course there's some cheesy parts, but like, what horror movie doesn't really have cheesy parts or scenes to it? The death scenes were cool. It was graphic. I thought the acting was good. I had nothing against the acting whatsoever. I liked, you know, the little twist at the end when you find out that you think like there's one brother's really the monster and it's the other one. Overall, I love this film, and I think it holds up against the original. You know, you're not going to be Vincent Price, you're not going to be Charles Bronson, but I think it's holding its own against such a great film, so that's why it's on my list. So if you haven't seen either film, I definitely recommend it. They're both great movies. Next on my list is It. The original It was released November 18th, 1990. It's starring Tim Curry, Seth Green, John Ritter. Okay, so this movie is the reason why I'm terrified of clowns. It is just such an amazing, amazing film. It's a classic. The acting is amazing. The characters are great. The storyline, just to think about, like, you know, the different parts and them as children and then coming back as adults, like, what is not to love? This is a great film. So when I heard they were remaking it, I was kind of irritated. I'm like, just leave it alone. You're not going to get better than Tim Curry. You're not going to get better than, you know, Seth Green as Richie, because, you know, you just love Seth Green, you know, like, it's just so many great actors in this film. Like, scenes that like creep you out to your core. And then the remake was released, part 1. Now that was released September 8th, 2017. It's starring Phil Wolfhard and Bill Skarsgård. I remember going to the movies and watching this for the first time, and I'm gonna tell you that part 1 kicked my ass. Like, it was just such a great movie. Now I'm like, okay, nobody can replace Tim Curry, which I still believe nobody can replace Tim Curry, but wow, like, Pennywise was pretty terrifying. And these children in this film, the acting was impeccable. Like, I just cannot think of one scene where I'm just like you kind of cringe and you're like, that's definitely bad acting. No, like, there was scenes that just kind of like, okay, now I think it definitely took the original film and took it to a darker place. Now, of course, in the original film, you see Ben get bullied. You know, he's getting picked on, he's getting made fun of. But in the part 1 of the remake, you're like, wow. It gets even darker and more brutal. And you're like, whoa, like, okay, this movie, they're not playing around with this remake. They are like They want to shock us. They want to terrify us, but they want us also to have a good time. You have like those fun summer vibes, like, you know, the Goonies, and just like a bunch of friends riding the bikes together and enjoying the summer with a demon clown after them, like terrorizing them. It's just a good balance, you know, like one of those good films that are just like horrifying, but like a feel good film. So yeah, part one to me was just, you know, it was up there. I don't want to say it was better than the original. I don't want to say that, but part one was pretty close. Like, it was good. It was really good. I can't really say that about part two. You know, I think part one was just such an amazingly shot, amazingly scripted, acted film. It was hard to beat. Now, I left the theater like blown away. Now, when I went to part two, I'm like, my expectations were high. I was like, dude, this is going to be the best thing I've ever seen in my life. It wasn't bad, but, you know, I was let down. It was not part one. I'm going to say that, you know. But part one definitely held a candle to the original. Like, it was good. It was really good. Part one, you know, needed a little work. The casting was amazing. Like, you know, I love the casting. I just think that we needed more Pennywise. I don't know. It was hard to beat. It was hard to beat the part one. That's all I'm going to say about this. Now, there's funny scenes with Eddie and Richie, and, you know, they kind of have like their banter back and forth. A lot of that was improv. Now, these kids are just so freaking cute that they could just sit there and like curse back and forth at each other and just have these like amazing scenes that make us giggle, make us enjoy this movie even more. And like, to think that a lot of it was improv, it's like, wow, these kids are talented. Like, just such a great movie. To do a little comparison between like the original and the remake part one. So that scene with Georgie. Now you're watching the original and the scene with Georgie's sad, you know, like you're like, you know what happened to Georgie. But the remake part one, dude, like that first scene, I was like, okay, this is a horror movie. We just saw a kid get his freaking arm ripped off. And his, like, the scene where he's just crawling in the street and you see the blood and then he gets pulled, like, whoa, like, they were not playing with that first scene. Now, this film is the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. Yeah. Crazy. I had no idea. I'm like, wow, okay. And it doesn't surprise me that there's an R rating because this movie is gory. First of all, it's like nonstop cursing with these children, but it's gory. It is fun. It's just like, it's dark. Like this death scenes are brutal and they are shocking, but it's great. Yeah, and it definitely holds a candle to the original. I'm sorry. I don't want to say I like it more because I just love the original it so much, but it's really close. Part one is really close for me liking it more. I'm sorry. I can't get around that. If you haven't seen these films, run and see it. They're amazing. I don't know what you're waiting for. Next on my list is The Crazies. Yes. The original film was released in 1973. It was directed by George Romero. The remake was released in 2010. It's starring Timothy Olyphant and Joe Anderson. Now, I remember the first time I saw this film, the remake, it was in the theater, and I'm like, whoa, okay, so it starts off a little slow. I'm like, okay, just building character development, getting ready for an amazing story, and bam, it does. I remember the scene where they're at the baseball game. This is like a small town, you know, everybody knows each other, everybody's friends, and this man walks into the field. Now, he looks drunk. He looks like something's going on with him. He has a shotgun. And, you know, they're like, you know, the cops come and the sheriffs come and they're like, you know, you got to get off the field. Why do you have a gun? He lifts up the gun. They're forced to kill him. Okay, you guys are getting right into it right then and there. From start to finish, I love this film. And I think it's highly underrated. It is a good movie. The storyline is good. Of course, they're taking a movie from George Romero, you know, like one of the kings of movies. Like, he's given us so many great films. So giving us remaking a film that was based off another film that he did it has to be great, right? And it is. It's a great storyline. The acting I liked. I just had no problems with the actors. Of course, I love Timothy. Who doesn't love Timothy? He's phenomenal. Having him as the sheriff, you know, you just kind of feel safe. Like he's kind of one of those characters that, like, no matter like what movie he's in, you just feel like safe with him around. It's like, okay, he's gonna handle business. He's gonna take care of everything. It's gory. It is fun. The story's good. Like I said, I really have no problem with it. You know, I don't want to say that I like it more, but I like it just as much as the original. This is something that this is a film that I can watch nonstop. You know, there's a lot, I don't want to say there's a lot of films I can watch nonstop, but there's a good amount, and Crazies is one of them. I love it. If you haven't seen Crazies, definitely go see it. So Lynn Lowry starred in the original film, and she actually made a little cameo in the remake, which I thought was cool. So remember that scene with the lady? She's riding a bike and she's like speaking, like she's like saying nonsense. She's clearly been affected by like whatever is being spread around. Yes, that is her. She was in the original film as well. I thought that was pretty cool. And there's actually a scene in the jail cell where you see like graffiti, you know, written on the wall. It says Romero, bringing a little respect to the original movie, which I can always appreciate. So Danielle Panabaker is also in this film, and she's in another remake. Yes, she's in the Friday the 13th remake as well. Thought that was pretty cool. So Elizabeth Banks is up for this role, but she turned it down because she said it was too similar to her character or her role in Slither. I don't really know. I don't really think so. Like I kind of think that's a mistake to turn down this role, right? This is such a great movie. I wouldn't have turned down this role. I'm sorry. It was just a great film. Definitely check those films out. Next on my list is Dawn of the Dead. Yes, let's throw some zombies in there. This is actually the original film, is another George Romero film, is starring Tom Savini. Now, who doesn't love Dawn of the Dead? How can you not, right? It's such a great film. So the remake was released March 10th, 2004. It was actually directed by Zack Snyder. It's starring Ving Rhames, Sarah Polley. Now, I was in the theater, I remember the first time I saw this film. I went with my stepfather, and I didn't really know what to expect. This was another film where I saw the remake before the original. So this movie actually made me really want to see the original. And that opening scene, you know, you see the nurse, she's working her shift, she's getting ready to clock out. People are coming in sick. You know, these people, like this guy who just had like a bite, now he's in ICU, right? We know what's going on because we know it's a zombie flick. And then she goes home, she's enjoying time with her husband. She wakes up the next day and you see the freaking little girl, right, in the doorway. Now, I wasn't sure, was this their kid? Was this the neighbor's kid? Like, I was always confused about that. Like, maybe you guys can clarify and let me know. But the little girl, half her face is ripped off. She goes, you know, running towards the husband, rips his neck off, like, oh, like, yeah. Dude, you just started this movie like this? Okay. This movie is amazing, right? You can't deny a movie is great when they just like go right into it, and it's just like blood and like guts everywhere. It was pretty cool. And to see the woman's face, and she's like, what is going on? Imagine waking up and like on your day off, and that's how your day off starts. Dude, right? Like, it was brutal. So she has no idea what's going on. Her husband's on the bed bleeding out. She's trying to call 911. The phone's busy. And then he gets up. And he's coming after her. You know, like she hauls ass to the bathroom. Like, whoa. Okay. So they started this film like that. I'm already like at the edge of my seat. I'm like, okay, this is going to be an amazing zombie film. And it didn't disappoint. You know, throw a little Ving Rhames in there. And the mall, right? You can't go wrong with the mall, and you're just like, you have a good time. Now, I know I'm going to get hate for this, and I'm going to say it because, you know, I don't even care. I'm just going to say how I feel, but I like this more than the original. I do love the original, so I'm not bashing the original whatsoever. I do love it, but I love this one a little bit more. I don't, you know, it's just... I don't know if it's because I saw it first and I was just immediately I fell in love and I was hooked. I was connected to this film. I was hooked to it and onto it, and it was just, I don't know if that's the reason why I love it more than the original, but I do. I think it's better. I'm a huge George Romero fan, and I also appreciate Zack Snyder, and you could tell this is a Zack Snyder film from start to finish. It's definitely it has his vibes, his, like, how his movies usually go, but it's just so good. It's just such a great movie, and I love how they end it. Like, I love them like coming to an island and they think they're safe, and then you see kind of like the found footage, and you're seeing them like kind of stuck, like you're like, what's next? And it kind of leaves you hanging. I just love this film. It's a remake that I love more than the original. I said it, and I understand a lot of people don't feel that way, but I do. I'm just bonded with this film in particular. And this movie is actually the most profitable film in the Dead series, which I thought was pretty interesting. I guess I'm not the only one who loved it just as much, or maybe even a little bit more. So again, if you haven't checked these films out, I definitely recommend it. They're both amazing films. The next on my list is The Omen. The original Omen was released in 1976. It's starring Gregory Peck. There's a lot behind the story of The Omen. If you've ever watched my Curse films, I actually do that for The Omen, and boy, that's some stories. If you haven't watched that, go scroll down and watch that video because it's intense. The original was released June 6, 2006. It was starring Julia Stiles, Mia Farrow, and Lee Shriver. Now, it's funny, they released this film 666, so that was pretty cool. Now, of course, who does not love the original movie? The original Omen. Like, it's just such a classic, and I will love this movie for the rest of my life. So when I heard that they were remaking it, I'm like, okay, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't even think I saw it in the theater. Maybe I did. Maybe I'm lying, but I can't really remember. But I was against it. I was kind of like, went into it with like, okay, they're not going to live up to the original. How can you? How can you beat Gregory Peck? How can you beat the original Omen? Well, it's too bad. It wasn't. I love Julia Stiles. I think she's amazing. Lee Shriver, I think he's amazing. Like, any role he's in, like, if it's Cotton Weary in Scream, if it's Sabretooth in Wolverine or Origins, he just kills any role he gets. And he really, he did a pretty good job in it. Throw in a little Mia Farrow, a little Rosemary's Baby in there, and it's like, you got a good film. Now, they definitely made it pretty close and accurate to the original film. I'm trying to think if there's anything that's really like different that stood out to me, but there really isn't. It's just, the original is the original. I definitely don't think the remake is better, but I think it holds a candle to the original. It was a great movie. That kid was super creepy. You have to like give it to him. Like, he was probably just as creepy as the original kid. I loved it from start to finish. There's a scene where Julia Stiles, and she like falls, and she does her own stunt from it. When her kid knocks her off, like, she did her own stunt. And I thought that was you have to respect that. I thought that was pretty awesome. Now, the remake was released 30 years from the original, which I thought was pretty cool. So, the scene where Julia Stiles is in the hospital and Mia Farrow goes and, she kills her. And she gives her a little like death kiss. You remember that scene? That wasn't scripted. Mia Farrow just did it all on her own, which I thought was like pretty amazing and creepy at the same time. It's like, oh, okay, she's the queen, who doesn't love Mia Farrow? The first time I saw this film and I saw her come as the nanny, I'm like, yes. Like, I was just so pumped. Like, being such a massive Rosemary's Baby fan, it was really cool to see her in it. Like, so many great actors in it. It was shot really well. The acting and the characters, like, there's some actors in this film that like reminded me so much of the original, which was nice. So you kind of felt like you were watching the same movie, but like kind of like refreshed. It was kind of like brighter. The special effects were a little bit better. Of course, it's a 30-year difference. So it was nice to get. Like, I'm happy that they did remake it, and I'm happy they did it so well. So yeah, that's why it's on my list. It's one of the greats. And like I said, it's not better, but it definitely holds a candle to the original film. I love it. If you haven't seen it, definitely go watch it. Okay, so that's 5 of some of my favorite remakes. Like I said, the list is really long, so I split it up in a couple of different videos. So don't think I forgot anything. I have more coming, guys. Comment down below. Let me know what some of your favorite remakes are. Like I said, like I know some of mine are not going to be on your list. Like we're all entitled to our opinion. This is mine. I'm sure you have your own. You know, it's cool to respect each other and appreciate, you know, difference of opinions always. Thank you so much for watching. As always, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe, and I'll be right back.